Imagine this. You're a veterinarian minding your own business when suddenly, one day, you hear a knock on the door. It's the government. They tell you to quickly pack anything that's necessary because you're going with them. Panicked, as shivers go down your spine, you ask them what you're being taken away for. They inform you that you have been specially selected by the big man, Fidel Castro himself, for a very important state project. Regarding a cow? The Cold War was a political confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, a clash between capitalism and communism that kept the planet on its toes for 6 decades. It is a significant part of modern history, covering many events, and it was a very tense time for humanity as a whole, regardless of which side you were on. It is important to acknowledge the state the world was in at the time, as if the war ever were to turn hot, you probably wouldn't be watching this video now. Or living, for that matter. Oh, the empty void. There are a lot of influential figures of the Cold War, both good guys and bad guys. But one of the most fascinating ones out of the bunch is Fidel Castro, dictator of communist Cuba. Besides being one of the main antagonists of one of the biggest political scandals of history, the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, and being subject to the most attempted assassinations in history, Castro also had other concerns which one might find peculiar given the circumstances. Ever since his rise to power in 1959, Castro had big plans for the development of Cuban agriculture, especially the dairy industry. If there is one thing to know about Fidel Castro, he loved milk. And you could go as far as to say that he was obsessed with it. The CIA had their eyes on Castro, being such a threat so close to the contiguous United States, and attempted to assassinate him using countless methods throughout his life, some more creative than others, ranging from explosive cigars to a bacterial-lined scuba suit. But the closest they ever got to killing him was in March of 1963, according to some declassified documents from 2007. The CIA tried to kill Castro using his guilty pleasure, by poisoning his milkshake. This attempt was failed, however, after the waiter that was supposed to carry out the assassination had left the poison in the freezer for too long, where it was hidden out of sight. The poisonous pill had stuck to the freezer's wall and Castro got away once again. During an interview later in his life, Castro said in regards to the numerous attempts on his life, "If surviving assassination attempts were an Olympic event, I would win the gold medal." According to Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a longtime friend of Castro that documented his life, Castro could eat as much as 18 scoops of ice cream after a full meal. He was determined to make milk and its derivatives a staple of the national diet. This led him to open a 2-story high ice cream parlor in Havana, called the Cappella. The building was very modern for its time, which was in direct contrast to everything constructed around it. It took up an entire city block, it had 4 indoor saloons, and in its heyday it used to serve as many as 35,000 people in a day. As journalist Georgianne Gayer described the Cappella in her book, "Was I in communist Cuba or was I in Alice in Wonderland?" However, there was one problem to Castro's milk utopia. Cuba's native species, the cebu, originally from India, were mostly raised for their meat and did not produce much milk, nowhere near enough milk to satisfy Castro's demands. Castro's target was the 100-liter cow, an achievement both personal and ideological. First of all, for his lactose obsession, and also to smash the record for milk production, which at the time was held by an American cow named Arlene, proving the communist superiority. The fact that the native cows were not suitable for the project was only but a small impediment for the lactose-driven dictator. In 1966, the Cuban government imported thousands of Holstein cows from Canada. However, unlike the native Cebus species, the Holstein cows were not used to withstand the temperatures of the Cuban climate, so they started a breeding program aimed at combining the Cebus species with the Holsteins, by means of artificial insemination, to create a new breed of super cows. Ubre Blanca, as she was named, born in 1972, was a product of these genetic experiments, and the program's only real success after many failed attempts. It was a cow Castro was looking for. Ubre Blanca's milk output was almost 4 times that of an average cow, and in June of 1982 she produced 109 liters of milk in a single day, beating the previous record held by Arlene, the American cow. She lived in a state-of-the-art air-conditioned stable and received round-the-clock care and attention from a specialty-selected team of handlers. This being Castro's cow, the paranoia was associated with it as well. Her food was given to other animals before being fed to her, as not to be poisoned. In 1985, however, after 13 years of serving her people well, Ubre Blanca died. Her eggs were frozen for future research, and the Super Cow program was abandoned shortly after her death. Castro went as far as ordering her to be buried with military honors, and flags were lowered at half-mast throughout the country. A marble statue in memory of the cow was erected in Nuevo Gerona, Ubre Blanca's hometown. To many older Cubans, Ubre Blanca evokes memories of the era before the so-called Special Period, the economic collapse that followed the demise of the Soviet Union, Cuba's main benefactor. The loss of trade from the former Soviet Union nations hit the Cuban economy severely. The country lost approximately 80% of its imports, 80% of its exports, and its GDP dropped by 34% in the 1991 to 2000 period. Fortunately, Cuba managed to recover from its catastrophic economic collapse. Now, was this due to the fact that they stopped dumping money into genetically modifying cows, or could it possibly be due to something else? Who knows? Perhaps they did secretly restart the program and started exporting super cows across the world. The world simply may never know.